In late February of this year, 400 competitors descended upon London, England to compete for the title of 2025 Pokémon Go European International Champion. This was the largest tournament in competitive Pokémon Go history, so the stakes could not possibly be higher. Former regional, international, and world champions were competing, as well as some unknown names who were looking to make a name for themselves. The level of play across the 3 days of competition was genuinely incredible. So today I'm going to be breaking down in detail some of my favorite games from this weekend and breaking it down in a way so that battlers, whether you're a tenured battler or a newer battler, can learn. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. The first match we'll be taking a look at is from day number 1 of the European International Championships. This is the Group A final, so the winner of this match automatically qualifies to Top Cut in day number 2. Now this is a matchup between the Mega Junko and Out of Pocket. And Out of Pocket already has a 1-0 lead. The lead starts off even enough Shadow Drapion for Out of Pocket into Pachirisu for Mega Junko. Junko is more than happy to see the Drapion here, considering his 2 Pokemon in the back, Talonflame and Superior, are going to perform quite a bit worse. Crunch into the Pachirisu, we do not see a debuff, and Pachirisu is going to build up to a Thunderbolt and go for a Thunder Punch. Neither move will knock out the Drapion, so Pocket does actually go for a No Shield. Pocket is now going to go for a CMP tie, correctly anticipating that Junko would try and spam out the Thunder Punch as soon as he got it. Crunch is going to do some very nice damage onto the Pachirisu. There is that 30% chance at a defense drop, and for Out of Pocket, he's very okay letting this go. Junko is going for an undercharge, not wanting the move to knock out here. We're actually going to see a simultaneous switch in Dugong into Talonflame. And this is so much of what makes this meta great, is the fact that energy advantage is oftentimes rewarded more so than switch advantage. So in this case, both players wanted the energy advantage, so they actually end up with a simultaneous switch and on completely even energy. This Dugong has now applied a debuff onto the Talonflame, and Talonflame is now going to fire off back-to-back moves. Fly number 1 is going to connect, and it looks like Dugong can actually hang on here if the second move is Fly. And Junko did go for the Fly. So Fly is going to inflict serious damage onto the Dugong. Dugong survives and is now going to go for an Icy Wind. And right here, I'm going to pause the footage. This is where crucial things happen in this match that flip the match into a victory. First off, if Pocket knocks out the Talonflame, then it gives whatever Junko has in the back an energy advantage, or at minimum, a turn advantage, because Pocket can switch out of the Dugong, but he'd be 1 turn behind. So to negate the ability for Junko's closer to have an advantage, he will go for an undercharge. This undercharge is deliberate, and it's going to leave the Talonflame at 1 HP. This means that the Incinerate that snuck through KOs the Dugong, which means that now it's Out of Pocket who will be up a turn. So now Out of Pocket gets to send in Annihilate, and Junko switches out into Superior. But Switch in this scenario takes 1 turn, which means Junko is now 1 turn behind the Annihilate. But this is a fixable problem. Superior gets to its Aerial Ace in 10 turns, whereas Annihilate's first move is 12. So as long as Junko throws his move first, he gets the turn back and will catch back up. However, Out of Pocket is aware that Junko needs to do this, so he waits the turn and gets the catch onto the Shadow Drapion. Junko shakes his head because he knows with this catch, there is no longer an ability for him to win the game. Even with an undercharge, Shadow Annihilate is just a runaway train at this point, with 2 shields to hide behind, and the first Aerial Ace successfully neutralized by a catch onto Drapion. Pocket makes the perfect split-second decision-making, which is so much of what makes Pokemon Go PvP great, and he's going to take this game and advance to day 2 in commanding fashion. Junko, he can commit the shield, but what he can't shield is the fast moves, and now that this Annihilate, its counters are 2 stages boosted, it's just going to be able to counter down every single thing that Junko has on his team. Junko goes for another Aerial Ace, but now we get to see another shield by Pocket. So Pocket, very comfortable just farming everything down. There's the switch to Pachirisu. Pachirisu not getting to a move as well. Junko nods, realizing that it's over. We see a single KO, a double KO, and now a triple KO for Shadow Annihilate, all set up by Out of Pocket intentionally undercharging to get the energy advantage, making Junko have to try and get the turn back, and then punishing that play with a devastating catch. The next matchup we'll be taking a look at is going to be another group finals, this time the Group G winners finals between Lurgan Rocket and Tauntaun Battus. Now both these trainers are extremely decorated competitors, so we knew going into it, this matchup was going to have some fireworks. Now for this game number 1, we see Shadow Annihilate into Shadow Drapion. If the Shadow Annihilate is attack weighted, as most should be, then there's some interesting tech from the side of the Drapion. If Drapion baits with an Aqua Tail, it can successfully no-shield a Rage Fist and make a second Aqua Tail. But Tauntaun knows this, calls the bait there, and that just puts him in such a nice position. And now, understanding that Rage Fist will not KO, he is going to go for the Ice Punch, and Lurgan is going to let it go to see if Tauntaun makes the mistake, but he does not. And now in comes Shadow Annihilate, and Shadow Annihilate is immediately threatening to run away with this game. Superior is not going to appreciate an energy advantage Annihilate, and neither will Steelix. So Tauntaun, in this moment, looks to be in a very difficult position. So how does he fight back? He actually fights back by switching a Steelix into Annihilate. Because this is an open team sheet format, he knows this Annihilate cannot have close combat. So the charge moves are not particularly threatening, and Steelix is quite bulky. So Steelix is going to be able to tank a move, make it to a Psychic Fangs, and continually chip away at the health of this Annihilate, because the lower the Annihilate gets, the more manageable it's going to be later in the game. So now, despite the fact that he switched a Steel type into a Shadow Annihilate, that play, strangely enough, has set up Tauntaun for success. Tauntaun now has a Superior with 2 shields, and it's very good that it has 2 shields, because he's going to need to start using them as there is a heavily boosted Annihilate. But this Annihilate, its defense was debuffed by Psychic Fangs, which is going to force him out into the Dugong, and at this point Tauntaun Battus, as long as he stays in with the Superior, does not have a loose con. So he gets to unleash Frenzy Plant. That's going to connect for massive, massive damage. And now Tauntaun is very happy to just shield, farm all the way down, because he knows the Shadow Annihilate does not have a charge attack loaded. So he gets the shield up, Vine Whip all the way down, Dugong without a shield to hide behind, just took way too much damage from that Frenzy Plant. Annihilate does not have a move. And despite a pretty unorthodox play pattern, switching a Steel type into a Shadow Annihilate, that was the key to victory in this game number 1 for Tauntaun. Incredible win con recognition as he moves one step closer to qualifying for Top Cut. The next match we'll be taking a look at is the winners finals for Group M in day number 1 between Z Zweilous and Snowman. Up to this point, Z Zweilous was undefeated, having won every best of 3 series by a score of 2-0. But he's off to a tough start in this game, leading Diggersby into Azumarill. Diggersby can win the Zero Shield against Azumarill if it does get a double Scorching Sands debuff, but since each Scorching Sands is only a 30% chance to get a debuff, that's only a 9% chance of flipping this matchup. So after the first Scorching Sands does not get a debuff, he does one switch and a catch onto his own Azumarill. This is amazing for Z Zweilous. He gets to waste Snowman's energy on his Azumarill, and the only good check to Azumarill on Snowman's team is Corsola. Now Corsola is going to have a positive matchup into the Azumarill, but Z Zweilous is baiting it out because he wants to use the Corsola as an opportunity to get huge farm on the Diggersby, because Corsola can't really do any damage to the Diggersby due to Diggersby's normal and ground typing completely walling off these charge attacks. Nightshade fired by the Corsola. Z Zweilous, very confident, no shield. He does not want to play for switch advantage in this matchup. Instead, he would rather go for energy on the Diggersby, making the play rough, losing the CMP tie, but Azumarill should be able to hang on here, not by much, but this should absolutely be survivable. Nightshade connects, Azumarill refuses to get KO'd without firing off one final play rough. Snowman with a decision to make, opting to let this go, and the play rough is going to take Corsola into the red. But now this is the opportunity that Z's Wireless wants. He wants huge farm on the Diggersby, maybe even a double resisted quick attack down. Snowman is going to pivot out, saving energy. Z's Wireless going to farm up so much energy, up to 100, and in comes Talonflame, as Talonflame is going to wall the charge attacks from the Diggersby. Diggersby going to go for a Fire Punch here. Interestingly enough, not fishing for a Scorching Sands debuff. Both moves are going to be single resisted. Going for the Fire Punch. Fire Punch is going to connect, and now he is going to go for the Scorching Sands. Scorching Sands is going to do more damage overall than a Fire Punch. So Scorching Sands is going to connect. Do we see the attack drop? We do not. Z's Wireless builds up to 100 energy, and he is going to look to connect with a Brave Bird. This started off with a tough lead and a tough mid game for Z's Wireless. Unfortunately, that Brave Bird does not KO, but with how he's played it, he's completely turned this game around. He has 100 energy loaded on his Diggersby. In comes the Azumarill, but now this Diggersby has so many charge attacks to work with. And if you have back-to-back Scorching Sands, I believe it's a 51% chance that you get at least one debuff. So he does end up getting the debuff there on the very first one, and now he can fire off Scorching Sands number 2. So Scorching Sands number 2, we are going to see a double shield from Snowman, and we actually see the double debuff. So all the stored energy on this Diggersby paying massive, massive dividends. The Ice Beam is going to be shielded, and this poor Corsola in the back has a charge attack loaded, but that charge attack is not going to go far into the Diggersby. Diggersby unleashing another Scorching Sands. All shields down for Snowman. This damage will land, and Diggersby still having a shield to hide behind means that this game is absolutely over. Unfortunately, these bubbles being double debuffed means that the Diggersby still has a lot of HP remaining. Diggersby, Scorching Sands will be able to pick up the knockout, and despite a terrible lead and losing switch in the mid game, Z's Wireless is able to play brilliantly here. And to add insult to injury, there's a catch onto the Talonflame. That was a bad lead, but he played his way out of it. Brilliant gameplay by Z's Wireless, and Z's Wireless is going to take a game that realistically things looked very, very dire in that mid game. The next match comes to us from Top Cut in day number 2. M.E. Weedle versus Dunebug, which is a rematch of the EUIC finals from 2024. And it's a good lead for Weedle, as Weedle ends up leading Air Slash Mandibuzz into a Shadow Annihilate plus Drapion core. So M.E. Weedle has caught Dunebug in a spot where Dunebug is ABA weak to this Air Slash Mandibuzz. As a result, Dunebug gonna stay in to start, look to fire off an Ice Punch. Ice Punch will inflict some serious damage, and now look to send in Shadow Drapion. Drapion going to be met with an Aerial Ace. Dunebug very okay having this damage land on the Drapion, and now Steelix hits the field. Steelix will be able to absorb multiple Aqua Tails, but by playing it the way that Weedle has played it, he has actually misaligned the switch timers, which means that if Dunebug wants to, he will have an ability to pivot out of this matchup later on. The Aqua Tail is going to land. It's a CMP tied to a Breaking Swipe. Breaking Swipe has a 50% chance of getting an attack drop. M.E. Weedle going for an undercharge. He would love nothing more than to set up a farm down. And now, due to that undercharge, Dunebug actually has a decent amount of operating health to work with. The Aqua Tail is going to connect. Switch Clock coming up any moment here. He is going to switch out, and he has one Poison Sting of residual energy. Sending in the Annihilate. Annihilate going to be hit with a Psychic Fangs. Psychic Fangs into the Annihilate. We do actually see the shield from Dunebug. So now we're going to see the Talonflame hit the field. Talonflame going to be met with the Rage Fist, and M.E. Weedle looking to keep that Talonflame healthy. Now, the residual energy on that Shadow Drapion is going to be very important, so make sure to keep that in the back of your mind. Drapion, it has one residual Poison Sting, so it is 3 off of a move. M.E. Weedle has an energy advantage, and Talonflame will normally win the ones against Dugong. The thing that's going to be tricky for M.E. Weedle, however, is the fact that Doonbug will have an ability to catch. Now, catching here would be potentially catastrophic. Dewgong is going to make its next move on perfect charge attack timing and is going to fire off the Icy Wind. This will not knock out, but it will get the Talonflame too low, so M.E. Weedle chooses to use his final shield. And now, after this next fly is thrown, this is where the mind games will get interesting. Because, as you see, Doonbug staring down M.E. Weedle, Doonbug is going to have to try and make a catch right here. The Dewgong is 6 turns away from its Icy Wind. Talonflame is 5 turns away from the fly. So, Dewgong cannot make a move. However, the threat of a Drapion catch is a very real one, because if Doonbug is able to successfully catch and overfarm, then he'll be in a very good position. So if Doonbug is able to successfully catch and then properly overfarm with the Dewgong, that would put him in a very good position. So now this is the mind game. For M.E. Weedle, his play is to throw the Incinerate, wait the turn to make sure you see the Dewgong start its second Ice Shard, because if you see the Ice Shard begin, then you're not able on Doonbug's side to make a catch. So let's watch how this plays out. M.E. Weedle throws it, he pauses, and now he throws the Incinerate expecting the switch out. Doonbug gets the move, and it looks like M.E. Weedle made a misplay. But I'm going to rewind this here for just a second and explain the insane mind games that just occurred in that moment. So what Doonbug did to get this move is genuinely brilliant. So Doonbug's play is basically, he is throwing one, he's pausing to bluff that he's waiting the turn to catch. For M.E. Weedle, he knows that the Drapion is 3 away from a move. So if he pauses for too long and Drapion hits the field, Incinerate is a 5-turn move, which means if Drapion can get 3 turns of head start, it's going to outpace, get an Aqua Tail, KO, and Doonbug wins the game. So the moment M.E. Weedle sees the pause from the Dewgong, he's saying it's a pause and a catch, which means I need to pause and then throw the Incinerate. But look what Doonbug does here. This is so brilliant. He pauses to bluff like he's switching, and then he throws the Ice Shard as soon as the Incinerate starts. I'm going to rewind this again so we can watch the absolute brilliance on display here from Doonbug. So Doonbug throws the Ice Shard, waits, so Weedle thinks there's a switch coming. So Weedle now is going to throw the Incinerate, but he starts it the moment the Incinerate starts. That allows him to catch Weedle in the middle of an Incinerate, pick up the knockout, and you can see there Weedle says, "Well played." Unbelievable gameplay from Doonbug, as Doonbug, Icy Wind knocks out the Talonflame, but the game's not over yet. Weedle's gonna need to avoid a catch, which he does. So even despite Doonbug's best efforts there, an insane mind game between these two high-level competitors, M.E. Weedle survives and takes a 2-0 win, and you can see the flex there from Weedle, as that was an unbelievable game, and both competitors hug it out at the end. The next match we'll be taking a look at is from Losers Round 6, which is now deep into Top Cut of day number 2. The tournament had 400 participants, and only the top 3 will advance to Championship Sunday. So this is a very important match, and it's a disastrous lead for Nighttime Clasher as he leads Diggersby into Shadow Primate. He can't afford to switch out of this matchup, because if he brings in the Feraligatr, Shadow Primate can stay in and win the 2s straight Rage Fist, and then realign and put the Azumarill on the Diggersby. So for Nighttime Clasher, he's going to have to make something happen. Nighttime Clasher choosing to stay in this matchup, going for a Fire Punch, and Fire Punch will inflict a lot of damage onto Shadow Primate. Shadow Primate is going to commit the shield. Nighttime Clasher farming up a lot on the Diggersby, and we see a bait from the opponent. This is such a tough call to make. Nighttime Clasher thinking it over, shields, and gets it wrong. It's the Rage Fist, but he redeems himself with a close combat catch onto Shadow Annihilate. This may be a double resisted close combat, but this is a boosted Shadow Primeape, and you can see the shock on Nighttime Clasher's face. He was expecting to be able to survive that charge attack, plus 4 Astonishes to get to a Rage Fist, but now unfortunately he does not. Corsola against Diggersby, a dominant win for Diggersby, but the Diggersby has already taken so much damage in this battle that Corsola actually has the upper hand, especially when the Scorching Sands does not get a debuff. Power Gem never going to hit particularly hard, but at this much of a health advantage, Corsola is actually looking quite powerful. The Power Gem never going to do much of anything, but the Diggersby is still rapidly running out of hit points. Diggersby farming up as much as possible, going over 100 energy, just wanting to bank this energy and switch out. So going over 100 was intentional. He wanted the opponent to throw the Power Gem so then he can pivot out into Feraligatr. But unfortunately, the opponent with the perfect overfarm, able to make it to a Nightshade. That's going to peel away the final shield from Nighttime Clasher. And unfortunately, there is just not a path forward for him in this game. Shadow Primeape hits the field, firing off this Rage Fist. And all Nighttime Clasher can do is shake his head. That boosted double resisted close combat from Shadow Primeape was absolutely absurd. That damage, you can see just the genuine surprise on his face. He made an incredible catch, but Shadow Primeape hit so hard that it just did not matter. Diggersby, all the energy in the world, but it loses the CMP tie to Shadow Primeape, so this energy just doesn't end up mattering in the end game, as a double resisted Rage Fist KOs the Diggersby, and for Nighttime Clasher, he drops game number 1. The next match we'll be taking a look at is from the winners finals, Pokémon versus Z Zweilous. Z Zweilous at this point in the tournament still remains unbeaten, a perfect 16 wins and 0 losses, and 2 of those wins have come in this best of 5 series. So Z Zweilous at this point has not taken a single loss in this tournament and is up 2-0 in a best of 5, leaving Pokémon searching for answers as he needs to win 3 games in a row if he wants to advance to Grands. We move into this next match, Azumarill versus Primeape. This is a winning matchup for Azumarill in the 0 shield and the 1 shield, but in the 2 shield, Primeape actually does emerge victorious. Azumarill is continually going to get outpaced here as Primeape is lightning fast, spamming out these Rage Fists. Pokémon again with the no shield. Primeape is so glassy, even an Ice Beam will inflict some serious damage. And now, going to throw 1 and the Ice Beam. Ice Beam is going to be shielded up by the Primeape. Z Zweilous wants to play to the 2 shield that he knows that he wins. Pokémon will not let that happen and is going to pivot out into Drapion. Drapion farming up quite a lot of energy. The bait from Z Zweilous building up to the close combat, baiting with the Rage Fist. That's going to save him some energy. And now he sends in Azumarill, as Azumarill is a complete wall to the charge attacks of Drapion. Drapion is going to begin spamming out crunches, but unless debuffs occur, crunch does not do a lot of damage here. The crunch is going to connect, and we do see a crunch defense drop. Another crunch reached by the Drapion. Drapion just continually outputting damage onto the Azumarill, especially more so now that we've had a crunch debuff, and there's crunch debuff number 2. Pokémon, only 1 shield left to use for the remainder of the game, decides to use it here. This Drapion, these poison stings are doing way more damage than they normally would. So he's going to farm up a ton of energy. Z Zweilous gets the Ice Beam, but he saves the energy and pivots out. If you don't have shields to hide behind, you need to bank moves. Otherwise, a Pokemon like Primeape can completely run away with the game. Z Zweilous is now going to switch into the Diggersby, and Diggersby is going to immediately be met with an Ice Beam. The no shield from Z Zweilous, he has to account for all that energy on the Shadow Drapion. Primeape's going to need to try and sweep, but it's going to be a difficult road ahead for Z Zweilous because of the brilliant energy management of Pokémon. Banking all that energy and catching onto the Azumarill was just devastating, and now Shadow Marowak hits the field. Shadow Marowak not threatened remotely by a Scorching Sands. Even if a debuff comes through, Mud Slap plus Bone Club will very comfortably knock out the Diggersby from this health range. Pato Man already at 50 energy. It is 70 for the back-to-back, so Pato Man is actually going to do a calculated throw on alignment after waiting one turn. Now, Z's Wireless is in a very difficult position, where there's just too many charge attacks for this Primeape. The Primeape is just going to get completely overrun. Primeape can feel invincible at times because of how fast it is to get the charge attacks, but with this brilliant play pattern from Pato Man, he's now made it where the Primeape just has nowhere to go. Primeape feels like absolute dead weight when it's down energy. We're going to see the perfect anticipation from Z's Wireless, but it's not enough because Pato Man had 3 charge attacks banked, 1 on the Marowak, 2 on the Drapion, so even with the catch, it still doesn't save him. And that will be the first loss at the European International Championships for Z's Wireless. Brilliant gameplay by Pato Man as he avoids elimination. We now move to the decisive Game 5 of the Winners Finals, still between Z's Wireless and Pato Man. Z's Wireless had won 16 consecutive games, hadn't lost a single one, but has now lost back-to-back games against Pato Man. And for this decisive game number 5, we're also going to talk about something called line sequencing. And that is, in these best of series, the order in which you play the lines can actually be very, very important. So if you remember in that game number 3, Pato Man, what was his team? His team was Azumarill lead, Drapion, and Marowak. And Z's Wireless ended up putting Azumarill on the Drapion, and that let Marowak be very good in the back. So now the question is, as we get queued into this game number 5, what lines do these trainers run? And you're going to notice they're very similar to game number 3. Z's Wireless is actually running back the exact same line. Pato Man is running what appears to be the exact same line at first. Same Azu Drapion, but the third is Galarian Corsola. Now this, in my opinion, is basically Pato Man's attempt to try and influence how Z's Wireless plays out the remainder of this game. Pato Man is highly likely to follow the same play pattern, grab a shield and then go Shadow Drapion. But last time, Z's Wireless ended up losing because he actually put himself in a bit of a difficult spot by letting the Azumarill get baited out. So by Pato Man, as we're going to see, he is going to switch into the Drapion here. Let's see, does his line sequencing pay off? Z's Wireless is going to full send. We see the shield from Pato Man. Z's Wireless, he switches in the Diggersby, and this is line sequencing at its absolute best. Z's Wireless, in that game number 3, he brought in the Azumarill, and then the Marowak was clear in the back. So now he makes the play that would have won him game 3. There's only one problem. Pato Man is not running Marowak in the back. Instead, predicting that if he ran the same lead and swap, Z's Wireless, if he was running the game 3 line, would switch up his strategy. He's now brought in the Corsola. And by baiting out the Diggersby, this now sets up Corsola to potentially run away with the game in the endgame. Drapion makes another Aqua Tail into this Diggersby. Diggersby already so low. The Diggersby lets itself get KO'd, and now this Corsola looks so deadly in the back, considering that it's the Azumarill for Z's Wireless. Z's Wireless at this point of the game still does not know the third, so he can pretty safely assume that it's going to be the Marowak. He ends up saving energy, making a nice catch onto the Azumarill, but this is when the magic trick is revealed. Momentarily after Drapion rebanks a bunch of energy, it's going to be the Corsola. And that is the beauty of line sequencing here, is Pato Man, by playing the line that he did in game 3, was able to realize the adjustment Z's Wireless would make in game 5 if he ran back the same line. So he ends up benching the Marowak, bringing the Corsola, and now he forces Z's Wireless into the alignment that is actually favorable for Pato Man. Pato-Man unleashing the Nightshade at the Azumarill. Azumarill hangs on, gets the return fire with the Play Rough, but Corsola will not be threatened by this damage. Corsola very comfortable surviving this charge attack. It is now going to be in the red. There's the switch into the Primeape, and Pato-Man with the perfect anticipation fires off the Nightshade. Had he thrown an Astonish, he would have been outpaced. So that is beautiful anticipation from Pato-Man, and the combo play. Pato-Man playing out of his mind in this winner's finals, KOing the Primeape. That was the last hope for Z Zweilous. Pato-Man hyping up the crowd, and it's well deserved. Brilliant gameplay there by Pato-Man as he engineers a reverse sweep to advance to the grand finals. The grand finals actually end up being a rematch of winners finals, as Z Zweilous is able to win in losers finals. And this is a double elimination tournament, and Pato-Man came out of the winner's side of the bracket. But in the first best of 5 in grand finals, Z Zweilous 3-0'd Pato-Man, so now we are in the bracket reset. That means whichever trainer wins this best of 5 is going to be crowned the European International Champion. And the teams are locked in for game number 1, Primeape into Azumarill. A very familiar spot to be in for both of these trainers, and you may notice these are the exact same lines that were played in game number 5 of winners finals, where Pato-Man, thanks to line sequencing, was a little bit able to trick Z Zweilous into sending Diggersby into the Drapion, fearing a potential Marowak in the back, but instead it was the Corsola. So now we get to see the mind games on display once again. Will Pato-Man choose to play it the same way? So far, the play patterns are identical. He is going to fire off the Ice Beam, grab the shield from Z Zweilous, and Pato-Man is once again playing it the exact same way. Z Zweilous actually playing to a CMP tie here, so an adjustment in strategy from Z Zweilous. He does go for the bait. Rage Fist bait is going to be shielded, but now he's stuck in this matchup. The Aqua Tail was thrown. He is going to end up burning a shield now, and this is all shields down. No more shields for the remainder of this contest. So Z Zweilous is going to try for the CMP tie. Pato-Man not going to let that happen. He is going to go for the overfarm because Drapion loses that CMP by a significant amount. So Z Zweilous is dramatically switching up how he's playing this matchup, and the Soul Read catch. Oh my goodness, he's able to get the catch onto the Azumarill. Switch timers are very heavily misaligned here. Switch clock actually up for Pato-Man. He's going to be able to bank a ton of energy on the Drapion and now send out the Galarian Corsola. Galarian Corsola gets to dodge the Diggersby for now, but Pato-Man has already taken a lot of damage on his other Pokemon. The Drapion has energy, but it's very low. The Azumarill is below half HP, and with the switch timers misaligned, there is potentially an opening for Z Zweilous. This is a CMP tie, and once both of these charge attacks are thrown, Z Zweilous will have the ability to switch, whereas Pato-Man will not have the ability to do so. Pato-Man, due to having that move be caught and overfarming, is actually still switch locked. So Z Zweilous can seize the opportunity, switch into the Diggersby. This forces Pato-Man to waste a power gem. That's a lot of energy, but throwing this move will allow his switch timer to come back up. So the power gem is going to connect. That damage pretty inconsequential for the remainder of this match. Azumarill hits the field, and now Diggersby will be forced to take super effective damage. Ice Beam is going to hit, connecting for some very solid damage onto that Diggersby. One and the Scorching Sands. Scorching Sands will not be enough to KO Azumarill here. Azumarill is very, very bulky, and Diggersby does not hit very hard. So the Scorching Sands is going to land. Can we see a Quick Attack farm down here? It's going to be close. No! The Quick Attack farm down will not come through, and instead Z Zweilous is forced to go for a Fire Punch. But Z Zweilous changed up how he played, so now things are honestly looking pretty good for him. There's energy on the Drapion, but the Drapion is so low. Corsola is energy dry. This is going to be a very difficult endgame. In comes the Drapion, and the catch once again. Pato-Man, he's only going to hit a few bubbles here. He wants to do very minimal damage because he sees a way out, and that way out is through the Corsola. Corsola, due to the undercharge, leaves with a charge attack. The perfect undercharge when it matters most for Pato Man. In comes the Diggersby, and Pato Man is able to outpace. He gets to the Power Gem. Power Gem, he is going to go for an undercharge because he wants to leave it at 1 HP, and he does because he wants to get to a move with Drapion. If Drapion can get to a move, this game is over. Corsola gets KO'd. Drapion poisons things down, leaves with the move. Primeape doesn't have the move, and unbelievable plays by Pato Man. Z's Wireless with the switch up in strategy had Pato Man on the ropes, but back-to-back perfect undercharges mean it's a game win for Pato. Before we hop into the final match played between these two at the European International Championships, which is game number 4, I very briefly want to show the lines that were used by these battlers in games 2 and 3, as they will have a very large significance for game number 4. For Pato Man, he has Shadow Marowak, Shadow Drapion, and Azumarill. And for Z's Wireless, Diggersby, Primeape, and Azumarill. As we take a look at game number 3, let's look at these lines once again. Primeape into the Shadow Marowak with Azumarill and Diggersby in the back. And for Pato Man, again, Shadow Marowak, Shadow Drapion, Azumarill. So he runs back the same line twice. And if we think back to the winners finals, how was Pato Man able to win? By line sequencing, by switching up that final Mon to cause havoc and make Z's Wireless make an incorrect prediction. So now, as we move to game number 4, let's see these lines. And for game number 4, Pato Man runs back the same line for a 3rd game in a row. Shadow Marowak, Azumarill, and Drapion. And for Z's Wireless is running Chargebug, Diggersby, and Primeape. So for Pato Man, he's just running the same line that he has 3 games in a row. But there's a little bit of mental pressure being exerted here, because in that previous set in winners finals, he ran the same lead and swap quite a bit, but switched up that final Pokemon when it mattered the most and caused Z's Wireless to mispredict. And now a great lead for Pato Man, leading into the Chargebug. We see a safe switch into Primeape, and we also see a Marowak very happy to stay in. Marowak can just apply massive amounts of fast move pressure in this matchup. The Rage Fist bait is going to be shielded, ramping up this damage from the Primeape. Primeape more than happy to shield back, but the thing you can't shield is the fast moves, and that's what allows Marowak to run away with this matchup. Primeape just going straight for the Rage Fist. Pato Man, he's counting, he knows this is a boosted Rage Fist. It's not enough energy for a close combat, so he will be able to no shield, and now will have enough energy for the Bone Club, but instead he's going for the full farm down and gets it. And now he's looking to pivot out into the Drapion. No matter what gets brought in here, the Drapion will hit the field. In comes Diggersby. He sends in the Drapion, pivoting out, and Z's Wireless makes the read. He makes the read that it's the Corsola in the back. He's saying, I know what you did last time. You switched it up and you brought Corsola, so I'm reading that it's Corsola in the back, but this time it is not. The line sequencing again for Pato Man, paying significant dividends here. Crunch will connect, KOing the Chargebug, and Diggersby is all that's left. And for Pato Man, the emotion beginning to overcome him. This is the largest tournament in competitive Pokemon Go history, and he is about to sit alone atop all of these battlers as international champion. Aquatail connects onto the Diggersby, and the Diggersby is still 4 off, which means the Aquatail is reached. And for Z's Wireless, he claps. He knows it doesn't matter what's in back. The game is over, as it is a CMP tie. And now Pato Man, he's nodding. He knows that he has done it. Against all odds, a trainer who is 16-0 coming in to game number 3 of Winners Finals, Pato Man was able to defeat him twice. And Pato Man, as the bubble comes through, will be the European International Champion. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this is the More/Henry channel, my second channel. Please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And I will see you guys in the next video.